Federal government presents midterm report card of social investment programs.
Democracy Day 2017. Nigerians assess democratic growth and the Buhari administration.
Correspondent examines the performance of the judiciary in the past 2 years.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we undertake a midterm economic assessment of the Buhari administration.
Shortly after taking office, President Muhammadu Buhari was reported to have contemplated kind of absconding from office. His reasons centered on the nature of the economy inherited, and this economy, according to him, was in very bad shape.
All right, now, Mr. President, of course, expatiated on that point when he met with participants of the Executive Course 38 of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies. Now, the participants had visited him at State House, and the President on that occasion said, "I asked if there were any savings, and I was told there were no savings." And invariably, the President was referring to the nation's capacity to meet its financial obligations going by its balance sheet.
Well, now, the problem that led to this situation had started showing up long before this present administration, no doubt, came on board. Of the country's foreign reserve, which stood at $40 billion in 2014, when crude price was about $110 per barrel, had plunged drastically by March 2015 to about $31 billion. At that time, crude prices had dropped to about $48 per barrel. Now, while this downward slide in the price of oil exposed Nigeria to the pitfalls of dependence on oil as its major source of revenue, Nigeria's import bill had risen to about 790 billion naira by 2015.
Now, the country's rising debt profile, of course, together with the volatility of the value of the naira, among other factors, saw the economy contracting in 2 consecutive quarters in 2016, and therefore the economy slipped into recession.
Now, clearly, the Buhari administration had a huge task on its hands as to how to revive the economy and put it back to the path of growth.
Now, the government, of course, has put itself to the arduous task of inventing measures to reverse the negative indices of the economy. These include, of course, seeking to diversify the economy by stimulating further agriculture as well as the solid mineral sectors as to ways of boosting production and encouraging export.
Similarly, the administration also phased out of subsidy regimes for petroleum products and that of fertilizer, which were described as major conduit for corruption and a drain on the economy. Which benefited a few people living majority of Nigerians in squalor.
Well, as part of the ways of also shoring up the country's external reserves, 41 items were prohibited from enjoying foreign exchange from the official window, as those items could be produced locally. And then also building the capacity of local manufacturers has been the focus of the administration as it strives to create a suitable environment for the private sector to thrive.
Well, in addition, Kingsley, the support for micro, small and medium enterprises facilitating the ease of doing business. Of course, they say small businesses actually grow have the kind of economy to grow in this part of the world. While the alignment of monetary, fiscal, as well as trade policies, a strategic engagement with OPEC, and in the Niger Delta, some of the initiatives the government has put in place to revive the economy. How well this has thrived?
All right. Well, absolutely. Pertinent question. With these and several other measures, the administration has said, to have come clearly to grips with the enormity of the challenge with the economy, especially as the economy had slipped into a recession. How
to own homes of their own. anyone who can afford 30,000 a month will be able to buy a home under our new social housing fund scheme.
Following the Buhari administration's 2 years in office, May 29th is significant to Nigeria's history because it is a day Nigeria witnessed the return of democratic governance after 15 years of military rule. Political correspondent Abdullahi Garba Birnin Kudu reports that as the nation marks another democracy day and 2 years under President Muhammadu Buhari, political players say the nation has fared well.
If you recall the past to judge the present in order to forecast the future, we have made monumental accomplishments, and a lot still needs to be done, especially in the area of containing the excesses of cattle.
In terms of the economy, I say to people that yes, today you can hear people make negative comments about the war against corruption. But the truth of the matter is that there is a war against corruption in this country.
Integrity is coming back gradually to focus. And even what the present administration is doing and trying to see how we can find a conducive environment and atmosphere within our policy.
Meanwhile, acting President Professor Yemi Osinbajo, in a nationwide broadcast to mark the second anniversary of the Buhari administration, urged Nigerians to continue supporting the administration to enable it realize best intentions for the country. The acting president said the country has put her most difficult period behind her.
And our promise to you is that we will, with your support and cooperation, take every step needed to create that country of our dreams. We also know that this journey will of necessity take time, but will not succumb to the temptation to take shortcuts that ultimately complicate the journey. We did not find ourselves in crisis overnight, and we do not expect overnight solutions to our challenges. The most important thing is that we are on the right path, and that will not deviate from it, even in the face of strong temptation to choose temporary gain over long-term benefit. As the President has summed it up, and I quote, "The old Nigeria is slowly but surely disappearing, and a new era is rising."
In the meantime, some Nigerians who interacted with Chukwunonso Nwabueze referred to the acting president's 2017 Democracy Day speech as inspirational and encapsulating the achievements and challenges of the present administration in the last 2 years.
Speech itself is motivational. It gives hope to the average person and everybody that understands what the totality of what he spoke about. And I join hands with others to say that given what has been, the way things have been managed over time, to be able to stabilize and steady, we are back on course. We can only get better.
The speech is one speech that have shown that him and the president are one. Whatever anybody can say is clear. The messages, his references from the president budget and his message and the prayer, call for prayer for the president, quick recovery, like that.
Change has begun. Yes, change would happen. And yes, this government is on the right path.
The judiciary is one of the tripod upon which the Nigerian democracy stands. It is against this backdrop that the arm is considered indispensable in democratic settings. Correspondent Aliu Tukur spoke with the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court and some stakeholders on the performance of the judiciary in the past 2 years.
The only challenge we may have is that of it might be a due process being followed and court orders being obeyed.
The judiciary is played the very best it can. The expectations are high, and it will appear that there has not been undue, like what we used to say, subterranean influence on the judiciary.
And the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons has handed over shelter materials worth millions of naira to victims of insurgency in Adamawa State. The Federal Commissioner, Sadia Umar Farouk, who handed over the materials, said the federal government is committed to ensuring proper resettlement of victims.
Materials to augment the efforts of the state government in resettling these people back to their respective communities. We've brought to Michika local government, Mubi local government, Maiha, and Madagali, right? Hong.
Well, that's the news for now. Blessing and Kingsley will return after this break.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism.
Whenever pain occurs, you want quick relief. Try new Nurofen Express. It goes to the source of pain and gets to work in under 15 minutes. That's why Nurofen Express delivers fast and effective relief. New Nurofen Express works at the source of pain. Fast.
Being a mom is great, but when your child has a fever, you don't know what to do. I trust Nurofen for Children to take care of my child's pain and fever.
Effective relief you can trust.
So what's up, sweetheart? You really look like you're up to something.
I have a secret.
Okay.
I'll be going to Europe next week.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Like you have your visa, your passport, your plane ticket?
No, not that way. Some men are helping us. We pay them, they take us through the desert, and then we cross the sea into Europe.
The desert, the sea. Isn't that the route where many have died?
Yes, it is indeed a very dangerous journey. In 2016 alone, 4,900 people died while crossing the Mediterranean Sea to enter Europe. Many were Nigerians. For the very few who survived the journey, they are forced into prostitution or other crimes just to survive. Eventually, they will be arrested and deported to Nigeria. Don't be a victim. Don't go this way.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Well, it's the first day after the public holiday. Financial markets are open today to mark Nigeria's Democracy Day. Plus, economic analysts advocate renewed effort in developing local content to reduce imports and create jobs. Let's find out more from Joe Uzo.
A warm welcome to Business News. Financial markets were closed Monday in commemoration of the Democracy Day holiday. However, trading resumes this morning with high expectations as the economy tries to get its bearing amidst improved data in the last quarter. Still on the economy, the Nigerian Economic and Recovery Growth Plan is capable of turning the fortunes of the nation in a very short while if fully complied with. As the present administration completes its second year in power, experts say it is necessary to do a stock taking and adopt strategies that are capable of engineering growth and development.
The best security any nation can have is food security. That is to say, you are able to feed your people. So local content is a critical issue in Nigeria's economic development, and until we begin to look inwards such that every item that is in our market, every item that we take to our homes for consumption, the local content in such items are at least not less than 60 to 70%. First of all, it will mean that we are consuming what we produce, and most importantly, it will give job to our people. The unemployment we're experiencing in Nigeria today is because we import and consume what other people produce.
Minister of Budget and National Planning Udoma says government is fully committed to that, not minding the state of the economy, and assured things are working.
I think we have done well in spite of the challenges which we met. You know, we had serious challenges. The economy was seriously challenged. And right now, you know, and there was decreasing confidence in the economy. Right now, we have turned things around. There's increasing confidence in the economy and in the future. We still have a lot of work to do, but things are very positive.
Meanwhile, a member of parliament, Aminu Suleiman, says Nigerian lawmakers are determined to give close monitoring to the 2017 budget to ensure effective implementation. Mr. Suleiman said this is necessary considering that the budget is in deficit, with the federal government resorting to borrowing to service part of the budget. He said ensuring budgetary allocations are judiciously utilized will bring about a multiplier effect on the economy.
Since we are trying to eliminate corruption and all tendencies that are leading to corruption, at the end of the day, what we source outside are usually going to be put in rejuvenating ventures. Agriculture, science and technology, that is the drive of the government. The fear of Nigerians is predicated on the tradition we have established as a country, where loans, international loans, are taken and diverted.
This is coming in the wake of a recent survey by the International Monetary Fund, IMF, that Nigeria's indebtedness will climb to 24.1% of its gross domestic product, GDP, by 2018, and its current indebtedness also projected to reach 23.3% of its GDP by end of 2017, from 12.1% in 2015. That's it on Business News. Many thanks for watching.
Thank you very much, Joy, for the business package. Now it's time to take a look at the newspapers and their headlines this morning.
All right, our newspaper reviewer, Omeni Oden, is right here with us in the studios for today's review session. Omeni, morning and welcome to the program.
It's my pleasure as always. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, of course, as should be expected, there are follow-up stories on yesterday's celebration of Democracy Day, the acting president's nationwide address, as well as second anniversary plus 18 years of democracy. Let's begin by taking a look at the front page of This Day newspaper. Above the nameplate of This Day, there are two headlines that we'll be taking from This Day newspaper. Bad times are over. The future is bright, says Oshibanjo, with two riders, promises to sign 2017 budget soon and vows to bring corrupt persons to justice. And below that, another headline, Oyegu, that's the chairman of the APC. APC will give Buhari automatic ticket in 2019. Details of that story can be found on page 9. Let's also take a quick look, Blessing, at other headlines on other pages.
Okay, let's take a look at what Daily Trust is given this morning. Just below the nameplate, we have this story. Will resist anyone that sows confusion. It's coming from acting president Yemi Osinbajo. Sorry, find on page 3. Just beside that, you have Yari, that's governor of Zamfara State. 46 doctors for 4.7 million people in Zamfara is worrisome. And leading for the Daily Trust, Biafra, tension over IPOP, Masop sit-at-home order as agitators mark 50th anniversary. It starts right there but continues on page 5. And the photograph is that of the acting president accompanied by ministers and beneficiaries of the National Social Investment Program at the Presidential Villa, Abuja, yesterday. 35 electricity turbines down in 15 generating companies. That story found on page 13. Buhari will contest in 2019. This is coming from a campaign organization. That story is trending on page 45. I've fulfilled my promises. El Rufai says, El Rufai, of course, is Nasir El Rufai, governor of Kaduna State.
All right, let's take some other headlines also from the Punch newspaper, still on the Democracy Day celebration and matters arising from that. Let's take a look at the front page of the Punch newspaper. If we can have that right there on the screen.
Before the Punch, the authority is having the same story about the Democracy broadcast. The authority, you have the worst is over. The worst is over. Acting President Osinbajo says, with two riders, defend slow pace of anti-corruption crusade and promises to tackle armed herdsmen's menace. Biafra at 50, Amnesty International warns against clampdown on agitators. Those are some of the stories on front page of the authority. Just above the nameplate, you have return Rivers gunboat, if not in use, Wike tells Navy. That story is on page 4. And still on page 4, snake disrupts activities at NYSC orientation camp. Undercover visits, immigration boss watches officers on ethical conduct at airports. Okay,
all right, yes, let's have your comments.
Yes, a good number of the papers are almost busting today with all kinds of features, advertorials on the fallout of yesterday's activities, which sustains today and maybe beyond this week. And if you take a look at Mr. Acting President's broadcast yesterday's speech, it's going to be a reference for so many people in the next couple of days, because he said and raised a lot of things. But most of the papers summed it up today to say that he has said it, that the bad days are over and it is all time for all Nigerians to rally together, no matter the challenges, to move on. But clearly he said that a good part of the 2016 budget was spent on clearing the mess that was left, and there's all hope that if the 2017 budget is passed, most of the issues waiting to be attended to will be addressed. Clearly said there were no overnight solutions to challenges. Was mainly engaged clearing the mess left behind by the previous administration. Special courts to be set up trying corrupt cases for expeditious conclusion of the cases, and there will be efficient accounting and budgeting system, among other measures, to check looting in the country. Quickly, also, the national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Chief Digo Yegun, yesterday, while speaking with journalists on the midterm of the present administration led by the APC, said the APC will give President Buhari the first chance of refusal for 2019 election, and that, not minding his health, he believes he will surely be well, that he has the right to say yes or no to the next elections, and also scored APC high by the next by its performance so far in Nigeria. NBA, speaking through its national president Mahmoud, has said that the continuous detention of former National Security Advisor Sambo Dasuki, Islamic leader Shahid Zaki and his wife, and some judges that by the federal government, despite court orders, is an affront to the rule of law, and it should be checked that if the courts have given court orders that don't mind it, they are aware that the gravity of charges against them, but that the court says give them bail, and all you need to do is to ensure that their movement may be restricted, but obey the rule of law. That is not telling well on the image of the present administration. And also judges who were arrested on grounds of corruption, 8 months after, have not been charged to court. Something should be done, or they should be allowed to continue to function.
All right, let's return to the front page of the Punch newspaper, part of the story that I just discussed. You can find the headline on the front page of the Punch. But of course, it's cast with a different light, taking a different aspect of that story. So if we have the Punch straight away, we'll, of course, read out the headlines. You can see that there. It says that's NBA asks federal government to stop probe of judges and false anti-graft strategy. And then also there, that's the earpiece beside the nameplate. It says slow justice system, frustrating fight against corruption. That's of course attributed to the acting president. And DSS to hand over 82 Chibok girls to Women Ministry. Those are the headlines from the Punch. Let's go over to the Independent newspaper. Independent newspaper still has as his lead story celebrations arising from the May 29th. The federal government will set up special courts for corruption cases, again attributed to acting president, and says Buhari spent much of 2016 clearing Jonathan's mess and reveals president's greatest fear, alarming level of poverty. Now, do you have other, the front page of the Independent is quite busy. You have a number of headlines there. University of Ibadan shot over students' protest. That's on page A6. And lackluster deal with OPEC may slow Nigeria's recovery. And APC didn't promise to wipe out hunger in 2 years. That's according to Abdullahi. Abdullahi is the spokesperson of the APC. And then you also have there Professor Momo. Professor Momo is the Director General of the Electoral Institute of INEC. He is dead. That's the report that is had. He passed on yesterday. Abubakar Momo, he was also buried yesterday, according to the report. Now, 2 dead and 14 rescued and many trapped in collapsed building in Lagos. So we want occupants to vacate the house. That's according to the Lagos State Government. Story in greater detail on page A4. Listen.
No, I think
you don't have any other one?
No,
All right, so Omini, let's get your
quickly to sum up, yesterday, 9 days ago, we had a collapsed building in Lagos, somewhere in Ekpe. This time, it took place yesterday, number 9, Dadi Alaja Street, Oke-Arin, Idumota, Lagos State. 2 dead, 14 rescued, several trapped. And the building collapsed as a result of weak foundation and use of substandard materials. Authorities of the Lagos State Building Control Agency say they had warned occupants of the property to leave before now. But well, maybe some of them for fear of not having money to pay house rent or what have you. Look at what happened. An NGO has called for a very serious inquest by the Lagos State government into that because it's becoming an embarrassing situation. There was need for the authorities in Lagos to take a serious integrity test of structures in Lagos because it's becoming very, very embarrassing.
Several buildings that are actually old and they're such a...
And quickly, to follow-up story to the Lagos State Model School abduction. Parents and management of the school yesterday met and ransom have been graduated based on the working capacity prospects of economic prospects of the parents. Some parents have to pay 20 million, some 50 million. But the management of the school advised the parents, no, government is doing everything to ensure that their children come back in safe return. But the parents are very, very impatient. So the meeting ended up in some kind of confusion because the management said they would not be part of the ransom payment. And quickly too, while celebrations were ongoing yesterday, most states are also celebrating 50 years anniversary, side by side, 2 years anniversary for the present administration. In Bayelsa State, a police sergeant was shot in Sabama, just before the police station, and in Cross River State in Calabar, students of the University of Calabar and Cross River University of Technology protested as a result of the non-release of money approved by the Governor Yade. This report said that he approved 13 million naira for mobilization of students to attend activities marking the 50th anniversary. But the Commissioner for Youth and Sports could not release the funds, and students demanded to get the funds released. And as a result, they protested, and security men came in, and 2 were shot and injured and are receiving attention in the hospital.
How sad.
All right.
But the other story quite amazing in Zamfara State, 46 doctors for 4.7 million patients. How does that play out? Is it brain drain?
Seriously overwhelming.
Yes, the challenge is to recruit more medical personnel. It's as simple as that. And get them. I think that's the much that we can take in our super review segment.
Yeah.
Thank you for
being
here.
Thank you so much.
I'll see you again tomorrow. All right, it's Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll be discussing the 2 years of the Buhari administration, management of the economy.
gym, pump it up while your feet are stomping. And the gym is pumping. Look ahead, the crowd is jumping. Pump up your jam and push up your hand. You know, say me fans, them plenty like sun. Jump up and dance, make them understand. Say me energy could have never be contraband. No matter what life throws at me, I cannot kill it constantly. All of my fans, them invited. DJ, make my day.
Make my day. Make my day. Make my day.
We appreciate the gesture, we appreciate her love, and we know that she cares about the people of Nigeria.
She wants to touch people's life, especially the less privileged, or even people who are sick in the hospital. We remember that they have a wife of the president who is very concerned about human life and humanity in general.
If you just tuned in, the program is Good Morning in Nigeria. Now, to set a tone for our discussion, taking a look at the midterm economic scorecard of the Buhari administration. Let's find out some other details with Timothy Yusuf.
As the present administration clocks 2 years in office, the economy has been undergoing review by many Nigerians from diverse backgrounds. Many take into account the fact that recession kicked in not long into the administration, thereby causing untold hardship on the land. However, analysts are quick to point out that the Buhari administration has little or no blame to take on the recession, as the previous administrations failed to save, diversify the economy and encourage production. The attempts to revitalizing a non-performing economy whose future was hanging in the balance because of dependence on one revenue-earning product, crude oil, has therefore become the major battle that the Buhari administration has to contend with in the past 2 years. Many say the Buhari administration came battling corruption and insecurity, among other challenges, but had to contend with a major setback of recession, which was caused by many poor decisions of the past. With the blocking of leakages in government finances through the TSA, the vigorous fight against corruption, the diversification of the Nigerian economy, and the prohibition of import of many products that can be produced locally, many say there is hope for a great economy. The good news is that the country will soon come out of recession, as most policies being put in place have started yielding positive results. The latest figures of the economy from the National Bureau of Statistics indicate that the recession will soon end. With the Social Investment Program, the NPA program and facilitation of production, many Nigerians are now being put back to work and empowered. The economy has also been boosted with the rising figures of the Nigerian foreign reserves. The recently released Economic Blueprint, the Economic Reform and Growth Plan (EGRP), has also outlined how the economy will not only be revived but also kept on the path of growth. With the new development agenda for Niger Delta and the new guidelines on ease of doing business, among others, analysts are certain that by the end of 2017, the present harsh economic climate will to a large degree have run its course, paving way for visible recovery of the economy. Gets on Good Morning Nigeria are looking at the midterm economic scorecard of the Buhari administration.
All right, thank you very much there, Timothy Yusuf, for that background report. Now we have guests with us here in the Abuja studios as well as from other locations. First, we would like to welcome at this time Dr. Nazif Dama. He's an Associate Professor of Economics at the University of Abuja. Dr. Dama, pleasure to have you join us on the program.
Good morning, and good morning, Nigerians.
All right, and then we also have with us here in the Abuja studios Mr. Ken Ukoha. Mr. Ukoha is President, National Association of Nigerian Traders. Mr. Ukoha, delighted to have you on the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigeria.
And then joining us via Skype from Kano is a professor of economics, also a regular face on Blue Morning Nigeria, Professor Garba Sheka. Professor Sheka, delighted to have you on this occasion.
Very much, Professor Sheka. I'm sure we'll be able to sort out the audio from that end. Now from our Lagos studio, we're joining us on the discussion, a financial analyst, Mr. Tilewa Adebajo. Mr. Adebajo, it's good to have you on the program today. So in Lagos, we have another okay, I'm told the other guest is just to join us in the studio there, but we'll do that introduction as soon as we get him on set. Okay, can you get back to us in the Abuja studio?
That's right. Well, gentlemen, let's begin this conversation. I mean, for the benefit of having a historical recall, so that we know exactly where the analysis is taken off from. Namely, President Muhammadu Buhari came into office on the 29th day of May 2015. Yesterday was 2 years. But can we have a recollection from the basis of your expertise, the kind of economy the president inherited to govern the country? Let's begin with Dr. Dama.
Thank you very much, Kinsley. You know, the present administration came on board with extremely high expectation on the part of the populace in view of the serious economic quagmire that was bequeathed to the administration. And unfortunately, when expectations are too much high relative to the capacity of an administration to perform, people start feeling disillusioned and disenchanted. Why? Because for so many years, the institutional destruction, the economic malaise that has been bequeathed on this country, the expectation of people is that Buhari administration will perform instantaneous miracles. And in the absence of that instantaneous miracle, whatever efforts the government is doing, people seems to put it on a slower perspective. Let me give you a simple example. In the last 40 years, literally the economy has been dependent on oil. And dependency on oil has made it easy for petrodollars to come into the economy. And it has seriously disrupted the production structures and foundation of real economic development in favor of oil and rent seeking. Now, the damage that has been done for the last 40 years, and people expect it to be corrected instantaneously, that is very difficult. But people are justified to feel a bit unhappy because the government should have put in place right from the word go, particularly the fact that we have so many lawyers in the government to instantaneously send multi-oriented bills to the National Assembly that are capable of changing the distorted nature of the Nigerian economy and putting foundation for institutional development and framework. That didn't happen.
All right, yeah, we'll come back to what the government ought to have done from your perspective. Mr. Ken Okoha, from what was the historical economic inheritance of the Buhari administration?
Well, just like he rightly put it, I want to believe that things were not doing well for this nation. We had a country where salaries, civil servant salaries were borrowed for several months, delayed for several months. We had a country where we depended on imports for several years, and the manufacturing sector collapsed. Agriculture sector was abandoned totally, and therefore even our food was dependent on other countries, and we're donating jobs to them. We also had a country where FDI was also reducing, foreign direct investments were reducing so badly. And in any country where you have investments shrinking, it doesn't give hope for a future. We also have had a country where poverty was also plummeting going high. And all of these indices were, bringing serious shocks on the economy. And eventually, we're spending quite a lot on salaries and emoluments, on frivolities. And a nation that was spending over 80% of her wealth on her national budget on emoluments. And capital budget was just about 20%, thereabout. And it showed there was no future for the people. And then if you look at the real sectors, economic sectors, there was no hope, so to speak. And looking at health sector, everything was almost in shambles. The education sector was also having no hope, so to speak. And you could find out that public schools were decimating, giving room for, private schools where people were trying to make more money and then, from the poverty of the people. And this was the situation. But let me say this. The Nigerians have had some concerns. What are these concerns? If you look at from 2015, when the administration came into place, and of course I agree with Prof. Doc, that there were a lot of hopes that once this administration comes in, everything is going to take shape immediately. And again, with the kind of promises they were given during the election campaigns, that also, I think, gave Nigerians so high hopes that within few months, Nigeria will become, a London.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Okawa. Let's go to Kanu, where we'll introduce Professor Garba Ibrahim Shekhar. He's joining us via Skype. Professor Shekhar, there were forecasts, no doubt, and both from government as well as strong expectations. Where could we have gone wrong, or which were the strengths that economic indices actually pulled forward for us?
Well, actually, when this government came in, I was so concerned about the insecurity around the northeast part of the country, as well as the conflict in the Niger Delta area. And then, coupled with that, there was a collapse in the world oil market, which led to, a drastic reduction in the revenue coming to the government. And then, at that time when the government took over, inflation rate was just about 9%. And unfortunately, for the recession and other problems, unemployment rose to over 18%. And inflation rose to over 18%. And again, unemployment was also on the rise because so many industries that were existing before the crisis, fled the country, left the country for other places. Finally, the country slumped into recession where almost everything is in a reverse gear. So really, the government came in at a difficult time when, the major revenue source, which is oil, has actually collapsed. And unfortunately, the economy was not diversified. The effort that we have actually been making since 1982, up to that time, economy was not diversified. We relied on oil. Agriculture was not making much contribution as expected. The industrial sector was also not making much contribution because of inadequate infrastructure and other problems. So, sincerely speaking, when this government came in, the country, was in disarray. And of course, I even pity the government because if you have such, diverse problems, some may not even know where to start with. So actually, I really feel the government has tried at this moment by trying to, put some things into order and then roll out economic recovery and growth plan in order to find direction for the country.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Shekhar. Now, let's feel the pulse of our guest in Lagos, Mr. Tilewa Adebaju. Yes, these predictions before 2015 elections, there were indications that whoever even will come into power there were indications already that it's going to be a tough one. And could we have taken it differently with this present administration, given what was inherited?
Well, first of all, let me acknowledge what Professor Dama and Professor Jega had said. I think the problem is that we're very oil dependent with our economy in Nigeria. And the timing of the Buhari-Oshibajo election and the high expectations coincided with the drop in oil prices. But we have to all understand that economic management is not just about managing the high, it's about managing the highs and the lows. When there are low oil revenues, you have to make the appropriate adjustments. And I think what happened was the fact that the administration in the beginning did not get a handle on the economy. And I think the 6 months that there was no cabinet led to quite a lot of loss of confidence in the economy itself. And the central bank that was supposed to set policies had lost confidence with the foreign exchange system they had put in place. And these were the consequences of managing the downturn of the economy. Eventually, I think the government understood the consequences. And I think from the speech of the acting president yesterday, I think he said clearly that they are willing to learn from their mistakes and, of course, build on their successes. And I think this demonstrates the fact that they realize that, yes, some mistakes were made in the beginning, but, you know, at the end of the day, we find ourselves where we are. We have 5 consecutive quarters of lack of growth in the economy. The whole of 2016, the economy did not grow, and we had a GDP go back from about 6.25% to a bottom out of about minus 2.24%. But the good news is the fact that the trajectory on growth is now on the up, and the negative growth has bottomed out. And of course, inflation itself, which is another monster, I think has also bottomed out or topped out at about 19%. And the trajectory on the growth of GDP now, as you can see, is 0.5, and the IMF is predicting 0.8 growth for the economy. So we've had a terrible year last year by all indications from economic numbers. But with the economic recovery growth plan, I think the federal government of Nigeria has finally taken responsibility, and the indicators show that there's signs, very, very weak signs right now of recovery.
All right, Mr. Tilewa, thank you very much. Tilewa Adebajo, thank you very much. Again, we'll come back to you. Let's now begin to crunch the various policy measures adopted by the administration in light of the background provided by our guests, and then to see, look, what does the future hold? Yeah, crisis of expectations, as Dr. Dama had said, but now going forward, that's to say, after the initial crisis of expectations, what is it that we are beginning to see with the management of the economy?
Well, as you can see, the government has tried to put in place some measures. The economic recovery and growth plan, even though it is much shorter than what we anticipated in terms of a full-fledged medium-term national development plan, because whenever you are making policies and you are restricting them to the federal government, there is always the problem of half implementation, because the federal government controls just half of the economy. When you don't carry the states, you don't carry the local governments, then the impact of the policy is minimal in nature. And we'll use this opportunity to call on the government to really take the country back to the culture of medium-term national development planning, where every single developmental challenge and intervention is encapsulated, properly costed, and all-inclusive for the 3 tiers of government, so that we will have harmonious and self-sustainable development for the whole country, not at the federal government level. That is one. Number 2, the government has put in place the efficiency unit at the Federal Ministry of Finance, which significantly reduces the wastages associated with overhead expenditure. That is a very good move. But realistically, what we need to do in this country is to move beyond cosmetic reduction in recurrent expenditure, where the numbers, where the spending, where the wastages are, is in real capital expenditure. The reality is that in this country, projects are costed much more higher averagely than any other country in Africa. And we cannot expect to continue to develop like this, because whenever you are calling for people to come and bring their resources in terms of public-private partnership or foreign investment, those people have their own interests, they do their calculations, they know the cost movers across various economies, and they make comparison of what is costing or what is obtainable in other economies before they invest in your economy. Really, we cannot continue to develop in a scenario where 1 single kilometer of road will be costing billions, whereas that same single kilometer can be safely and efficiently constructed for 150, 200 million naira. And this is where the wastages are. If Nigerians think that foreigners don't know what we are doing, they have more information about us than we thought they know. Therefore, we need to sit down as a nation, bring all the stakeholders, particularly the state level and the federal, so that we will have a realistic costing of projects and programs. And this is where the role of institutions like Nigerian Institute of Quantity Surveyors comes into being. I have always been advocating this. They are the professionals who are charged with the responsibility of costing government projects and programs. Engineers are the ones doing it, and it is extremely wrong. Engineers are supposed to provide specifications for design, but costing is supposed to be professionally done by Nigerian Institute of Quantity Surveyors. Number 4, we need to have more cooperation between the federal government and the states. We have a lacuna in the Constitution that says that states are independent, local governments are independent, but we are operating in a single economy. And therefore, whatever action is taken by the federal government, if there is no simultaneous complementarity on the part of the state and the local governments, that action cannot succeed. Even though we may not instantaneously change the Constitution, but we need to sit down as a country on a bipartisanship basis so as to look at the economy from a realistic perspective and do what is right. Everybody knows what is right, but we need to start doing what is right. Number 5, we need to have a clearly oriented industrial policy and patronage of what is made in Nigeria. Unfortunately, I'm also a culprit. What I'm wearing is not made in Nigeria. It's made outside Nigeria. And this consumption culture has been with us for so many years. It is very difficult to change it overnight. But we must be able to take steps in order to induce a culture of patronizing made in Nigeria good, while simultaneously taking specific policies and programs that will induce higher quality of what is made in Nigeria so as to compete with whatever is imported. We need to sit down, have proper conversation with every single individual stakeholder in this, because it is really pathetic that 180 million people in this country, virtually whatever we are using, literally 70 to 80% of it is imported. And we succeed in carrying job to other countries, generating income in other countries, generating fiscal economies in other countries. We cannot continue like this, but we need to sit down and talk realistically.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Darmad. Let's get to Mr. Kenuka. Yes, I beg your pardon. The manufacturing sector, and indeed even growing the economy through small businesses as well as other means of trade facilitation, add its own share of what the economy, how the economy dealt with it. Of course, we remember the issue of the currency squeeze, we also the currency peg, the exchange rate, all took its own toll on the growing part of the economy. With the new phase, what exactly do you see different that could actually help take a different turn from what we experience in these areas that you have listed?
Let me say that those things that happened then were blessings in disguise, and I must say this, because it reduced the level of importation into this country. Because before you want to go out to import, you must seek the dollar or the currency that you want to buy with. And therefore, because the dollar went so high, beyond the grasp of the average trader, the average importer, it was difficult to import. And therefore, people now started looking for substitutes, local alternatives. And that's exactly what brought us back to the issue you mentioned, talking about patronizing locally made products. Again, the government picked it up as a campaign, and that rejuvenated activities within the manufacturing sector. Today, I can tell you that more than 70% of traders are now looking inwards towards alternatives that can be traded within. The second thing is that it is not all very bad. There are things that the administration has done a bit well, and this must be recognized. Take, for instance, in agriculture sector, where where you have improved productivity. Rice, for instance, today, where we produce about 3.5 tons per hectare. Today, local productivity is moving towards 7.5 tons per hectare. And milled rice, that we had about 3 million tons. Today, we have about 5.7 million. And that's a good thing for government.
Except that local rice is more expensive.
It's more expensive, but it's also good because, previously we were shouting, the local farmers were shouting that they were not breaking evens. But today, the local farmer is smiling to the banks, like other sectors. So farmers are now smiling, and therefore we cannot take it away from them. Neither can we take it away from government. Now, if you also look at other sectors, what government has done, the anchor borrower scheme from the CBN, the agri investment, and then totally you have seen agriculture moving from what it was to about 4.88% growth today as we speak. So that's a kudos. In trade, again, you also see that there are improved environments. There is custom administrations in terms of procedure that have been improved. Trade facilitation, like you mentioned, has improved. And you do not wait for so long. That corruption has also reduced in terms of custom administration.
So your members get less harassed now by the customs?
Yes, less. It's getting less.
All right.
And that's the
all right, Mr. Kenoko, thanks a lot. Again, we'll come back to you in the course of the conversation. Earlier, we indicated that we'll be joined by another guest from our Lagos Network studios. He's right there now with Mr. Tilewa Adebajo. He is Dr. Ikenna, who also is one of the facilitators of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group Real Sector Policy Adjunct. Dr. Omosu, a pleasure to have you join us on the program this morning.
Thank you.
But just before we come to you, Dr. Omosu, to get your comment, I would like Professor Sheka, who is with us via Skype from Kano still, to respond to some of the issues that have been put on the table with regard to the management of the economy. Of course, we've had you on the program discuss several aspects, in the course of the past 2 years. Now, what are we seeing? It's from your perspective, does the government now have perhaps a more holistic appreciation of what is required to be done with the economy and how it's going about this, taking a look at from the monetary policy, fiscal policy, trade policy, as well as the overall issues that appertain to the economic well-being and getting the economy out of recession?
Well, really, like I said earlier, the government is doing a lot, and of course there are bound to be some problems, because in a situation where we are lacking in the resources to finance the growth of various sectors, then definitely there will be some shortfalls here and there. But let me start by the issue of defeating the Boko Haram in the northeastern part of the country. You know, previously over 17 local governments were taken over by these people. And all those local governments were agrarian local governments producing food to the country. And for the first 4 years or 5 years, there was no single production there. So I'm sure I had the governor of Ondo State saying in the next 1 month, most of it will go back to their houses from the from the camps. So really, we expect to see a boost in food production in the country. And then secondly, the fight against corruption that everybody is expecting in this country, because we know how corruption actually retards economic progress of this country. Government is doing a lot, only for the very slow pace of the legal system in the country. Probably that is why we are not seeing results. But essentially speaking, the rate of corruption has reduced, and if the legal system, you know, is working very well, definitely we'll see much more changes in that. With regards to unemployment, the end power, which is the key policy government is adopting now, really, I don't know, 13.9% of unemployed youth. And maybe for a program just to take 200,000 or more people, I don't think that is adequate. Government needs to do a lot about that, because the issue of unemployment goes beyond, you know, employing 200,000 or 300,000 people out of millions of people that are unemployed. However, you know, this issue of economic recovery and growth plan, which is one of the instruments used by government to, you know, ensure diversification of the economy. Now, if you look at the agricultural sector, the major policy adopted by the government was just to, you know, supply fertilizer and sell it at a giveaway price of 5,500 naira. I believe that will help in boosting agriculture, but that is grossly inadequate. Government needs to actually provide much more infrastructure in the agricultural sector. For instance, like we always kept saying, agriculture can only be boosted through irrigation farming, because that is only where you can be able to produce 3 times or even more in a year. If you rely on rain-fed agriculture, many parts of this country are subjected to drought and other problems. So really, we expect to see government, you know, just like during the Green Revolution of Chagari, some dams like the Makalere dams were constructed. We expect government to provide facilities, irrigation facilities around the dams that are existing, and even if possible, construct more dams to boost food production. And again, if you consider boosting the manufacturing sector, really, we are still having problems with our power supply. And if you look at the figures given by the World Economic Forum with regards to ease of doing business, Nigeria is ranked 169. And out of 190, which means we are only better than 21 countries. And of course, again, if you look at the issue of competitiveness, we are also ranked 124th out of 144 countries, which is only, I think we are better than 20 countries. And I think that is what, one of the panelists is talking about, the issue of maybe this rice production, which is a bit locally produced rice now in Kano. It's a bit more expensive than the imported rice. Maybe because of this problem of lack of competitiveness, because if our rice domestically produced is more expensive than the imported rice, then it means we are lacking the competitiveness. We cannot sell it outside the country to help the oil sector in generating revenue, because really, if it is more expensive in the country, if you take it outside the country, say you take it to Nigerian Republic or you take it to Ghana, it is going to be more expensive than the rice in the market. So I'm sure this is going to actually block the government intent to boost, to diversify the economy through agriculture, because by this, it's an indication that we may not, in the medium run, fetch anything from the agricultural sector because of the high cost of production. So again, the issue of the fiscal policy measures, I want to give an example. Really, whenever we are coming up with any industrial policy, then there has to be a complementary fiscal policy. If I give example of one company established by one of the businessmen in Kano, which is to process tomato paste around our area in Kano here, saving the tomato farmers and providing jobs, giving tax to the government. But unfortunately, after establishing the company, our borders remain open for tomato paste to come from Italy, to come from India, and so on and so forth, and which are cheaper than those produced here. And so virtually, almost the company is no longer operating now. So I think if we are really to boost industrial production. Though I had the minister when he came to Kano for the economic summit promising that the export expansion grant is to be actually reintroduced. That is important. And I think when you consider the industrial sector as well as the agricultural sector, I don't know why government decided to remove subsidies. Some subsidies are very good. If governments like that of France, that of Germany, that of America can subsidize farmers, I don't know why Nigeria should not subsidize farmers because 80% of our farmers are poor and they need assistance. Probably that is why we lack competitiveness when it comes to the product that we produce. So sincerely speaking, there are a lot of things that government would do to boost the economy, but the little effort they have actually started is remarkable and it's commendable. We support the government for doing that.
All right, Professor Sheka, thanks a lot. Again, we'll come back to you. Let's go over now to our Lagos Network Center, where we just introduced a moment ago Dr. Ikenna also. Dr. Ikenna also, of course, the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, it's been, as it were, in the forefront of those advocating a better policy grasped by the administration. From what we have seen in recent times, are we moving away from the earlier experience, say, of the first 6 months of the administration? And if so, what are the heartwarming aspects of the new policy direction of the administration with regard to economic management?
Thank you very much. I've listened with interest. As you know, the Nigerian Economic Summit Group does a very important role in bringing together decision makers at the highest level in government and the organized private sector, and recently in the social enterprise sector, together annually to judge on policy, economic, social policy in the country, and the way forward after reviewing the year that has just come by. Now, our next summit is in October, and we are just like you've asked me, we are reviewing the current economic recovery plans and implementation steps of government. As the earlier speakers had said, 2016 was a very difficult year. Consistent quarters, 5 quarters of negative growth. And like you said, the 6 months gestation period before ministers were appointed, we actually had a major loss of goodwill and traction during that period. However, we are happy that there has been a positive turn after the government realized its errors. Now, agriculture, about 4+% positive growth, solid minerals about 7%, now contributed 2 billion to the federation account last year, as against 2015 when it did 700 million. Manufacturing, now about 1.36% growth. And a lot of people too lose sight of the improvements in Nollywood, in the entertainment, the creative industries. Recall that that was a major aspect that when Nigeria's economy was rebased in 2014, helped the country to become #1 in Africa. Now, one of the other positive steps this government has taken is in the area of the ease of doing business. That was a masterstroke, because a lot of the problems being complained by both local, domestic and foreign investors have focused on that area. One, we're very happy to see a new chief executive in the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, somebody who's got a track record, because that institution is very, very critical to achieving government aims and aspirations. And she's taken the right steps to restore investor confidence under the umbrella of the Ease of Doing Business program. The 3 executive orders issued by the vice president, I think people should read those orders very carefully. They are spot on. Bringing together all ports, clearance, cargo clearance processes at seaports and airports under one electronic platform is something that has been advocated for several years in this country. And I want to believe that that executive order implies the removal of customs officers in all internal roads in this country. All. They should remain at the borders because it is actually an embarrassment and a demarketing of this country as an investment destination to have cargo come out of the port and within a kilometer or two, you have customs officers arresting them. So everything that has to be done should be done under that single electronic platform, done right in the port before you come out. Another positive aspect of that is new visa policy launched, 48 hours grants, new immigration policy, and approval processes to be published within 30 days. Approval period stated, if the approval or rejection is not given within that period, the approval is deemed to have been granted. And if it is rejected within that period, you have to give the reasons why. You see, part of the reason why this is, I call it a masterstroke, is that permitting, licensing, the entry processes into this country, both for domestic and foreign investors, has been an increasingly frustrating process. Right from the CAC process, which now can be done by a potential investor, upload your papers, do your search, down to all other permittings, expatriate quota, residence permits, and every other permitting process. So with those executive orders, it will enhance the one-stop investment center at the NIPC and make Nigeria a more friendly investment destination. When I watched Richard Quest on the program last night, it was about 1 a.m. on Nigeria at Crossroads, it just encapsulated the question and asked me. This country's potential has so much, spoken about so much, but you see, the Made in Nigeria mantra, translating it from a mantra into reality, 2016 was a major challenge period for us in that regard. And the NESG's 2016 summit in October had the Made in Nigeria as its flagship phrase. So, talking about the positive aspects of what the government has achieved, we're very happy with the Made in Nigeria mantra. We're very happy with the new executive orders. We're very, particularly including the aspect that concerns transparency. We're very happy with the savings government has made in terms of cutting off leakages, have growing the sovereign wealth fund, over $500 million now, ensuring that many of the wastages in the system are out. Many of the new initiatives to promote MSMEs, the Development Finance Bank, the new one that Mr. Panachi heads, the other initiatives taken in terms of the Social Investment Program, the increased focus on capacity building for MSME sector, and in particular, the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. The aspirations outlined there are lofty, but the implementation requires that monetary policy, forex policy, fiscal policy must work in harmony. Otherwise, it is going to make nonsense of whatever are the targets outlined in that Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. And we are seriously counting on the flexibility of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Yes, the IMF has a growth projection. CBN believes there should be a more optimistic growth target. But you see, when international, at the multilateral level, decisions are taken as to projections for growth, the different indices that come into play are very important, and they take a medium to longer term view of them. Take, for instance, the CBN is expecting that revenues will increase because of increased stability in the Niger Delta. That's fine. Positively, the government has brought out a new vision for the Niger Delta. The federal government has also put in about 35 billion for the continuation of the amnesty program. Those other testy matters in the Niger Delta, like the issue of the university and other NDDC's budget, they've factored all those in. Fine. So the government is optimistic that with all this, there should be sustained peace in the Niger Delta that will enable petroleum production to move up. And when I watched the petroleum minister speak last night on CNN, he said, yes, that they look at their projections because they expect more peace and more production. So Nigeria has been exempted by OPEC from oil production cuts. So, fine. The foreigners will look at it.
All right, Dr. Iken, I also, well, thanks a lot, for a very elaborate response. Of course, we have with you there still, Mr. Tilewa Adebajo. Mr. Tilewa Adebajo, again, let's back up a bit to some of the issues you had raised on this program in the course of discussing the economic fortunes of the country. 2 years later, are we seeing a much clearer alignment of trade, fiscal, and monetary policies of the administration? If you can hear me clearly, Mr. Tille, what I'm saying, are we now seeing a much clearer alignment of trade, fiscal, and monetary policies? Of course, on the ease of doing business, you can put all of that under the rubric of trade policies. But what exactly are we seeing? And what are still the rough edges that we need to smoothen so that we don't begin to, say it's uhuru while we are still trying to get ourselves out of the woods?
Thank you very much. I think the alignment you mentioned, I think, is the most critical part of it. And I think it's also important to say that the Economic Recovery Growth Plan was a plan that involved the state governments and local government consultation. So I think in credit to the government, that consultation was quite universal. But having put this document together, I think it's important now that you put in the policies, as you have said, to support the implementation of the trade policy. Now, I believe this afternoon sometime, the acting president is going to commission the Nigerian Industrial Policy and Competitiveness Council. I think these are very welcome initiatives that involves the private sector, public sector engagement to ensure that government policies and implementation is on track. As you have said, we now find a situation whereby the foreign exchange system is now being properly managed through a very transparent market-driven system. You have a situation whereby fiscal policy and fiscal management is under control. But the problem we have with fiscal policy now is the fact that 66% of our revenues, according to the IMF Article 4, is now being used to service debt. So we have a problem there in terms of debt service. That clearly is not sustainable. Monetary policy, fiscal policy, I think, are now clearly in alignment. And I think what is important now is that we need to put in the situation to restore confidence. And I think the whole action that the acting president has taken, trying to restore peace in the Niger Delta, will definitely result in price stability for oil and to be able to sustain the FX intervention at least for the next 6 months. So you are right about that in the sense that alignment and consistency in policy is very important. Now let's understand what growth is all about and what the targets are all about. The Nigerian population grows about 3% per annum. And in order for us to have some meaningful growth, the economy needs to be growing at least 6% per annum. Right now, our growth is still in negative territory, but the trajectory is on the upward side. So these sort of policies that government is putting in place, the harmonization that you're talking about, the sort of councils, the ease of doing business, and all these initiatives by government, I think, are clear recognition. But what is important is that government needs to sustain these policies over the next 6 months to be able to restore confidence to the financial markets, to the business community, to the foreign investors, and of course also to the local investors in Nigeria. We've lost 30 billion from the foreign portfolio investors. We need to bring that money back. That will help to stabilize. Foreign direct investment has gone into negative territory. We need to correct that. And what is also important is the fact that, more importantly, the confidence level in the economy is what we need. And I think from what we've seen, there's so many things going on. And it's not all the sectors in the economy that went into recession, even though we've had 5 consecutive quarters of negative growth. As we mentioned earlier, entertainment and media and the fashion industry never went into recession. Agriculture never went into recession. Telecoms never went into recession. Insurance never went into recession. And from the first quarter of this year, we find out that sectors like the banking sector, manufacturing, construction, and transport have now come out of recession and are now growing. So there's positivity within the whole system. But the question is the fact that these are still seeds that are just germinating. And in order for us to sustain our policies, we need to be able to see what we'll call sustainable growth. So there are many issues, and I think there are many programs that government is doing. But what is important is that government now needs to articulate all these policies together and communicate them properly so that you can inspire confidence within the economy, and then we can begin to see the desired level of growth that we're looking at. But it's going to be a crawl, and we don't want to overhype the expectation. And I think it's important the government should douse expectations, and we should be looking at recovery probably next year.
Tilewa, I'm sorry, I'm calling by your first name, Tilewa Adebajo. One of the points I actually was going to touch on, I was going to ask, you've already touched on that slightly, because if you recall, while we're discussing the state of the economy in the first 6 months of the administration, we talked about a huge loss of investor confidence. Now, from the policy options that the administration is taking on, is there some signaling that, yes, investors might look at this and say, yes, there's something that we can hold on to here and then begin to come back and claw their way back into the economy? In this wise, what is it that the government needs to continue to fasten on to say, look, these are the things we're going to do, plus, of course, the advisory you just gave now, lower the extravagant expectations, both of investors as well as the people?
I think what the government needs to do now is that the problem we've really had is the Central Bank of Nigeria and the way they've managed the foreign exchange policy. The Central Bank of Nigeria tampered with Nigerians' domiciliary accounts and threatened to convert that to Naira. And I think what happened was that a lot of the money that came from the diaspora, close to $30 billion a year, went away. The central bank now further ceased to operate an open system. Last year, the central bank spent $5 billion on an opaque system, $5 billion on an opaque system of foreign exchange management with multiple windows, which was fraught with a lot of corruption and a lot of smoke and mirrors. This dented confidence badly. But now I think from the first quarter of this year, they have turned that around finally. The flexible exchange rate market-driven system that they have been told to operate, they are now operating that. And we can see that with an intervention of only $1.5 billion in one quarter, as compared to $5 billion intervention last year, we can begin to see that the 60% devaluation which the Naira suffered in the last 2 years has beginning to close. We used to have a gap of 22 Naira between the parallel market and the official exchange rate. The market, as you know, widened as high as 200 Naira when we were looking at a rate of 300 Naira and the parallel market was 500 Naira. Luckily, these policies are now changing. If we can see the sort of consistency in openness and transparency with the central bank foreign exchange management system, if they can sustain this sort of structure and continue to use the futures markets and continue to use a market-driven system, the gap between the parallel market and the official rate will close. And once you can solve that problem of foreign exchange, you will see a dramatic turnaround in the way this economy would begin to grow. And that, I think, is the only thing the government needs to focus on now. Economic policy, fiscal policy, all those sorts of things, I think they've got that properly documented. If they can restore confidence into the foreign exchange management system, it will be a very strong signal to the growth of this economy this year.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. There are reactions already to your contributions for this discussion. We'll take those reactions that have come by way of tweets. You can see the Twitter handle at the lower left side of your screen. That's at NTA GMN. Suleiman Zuntu tweets. There are very profound and strategic mechanisms for implementation of plans to be executed by the administration, including, of course, the strengthening of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, as well as debt management. And we understand, of course, 66% for debt servicing, that's killer.
Yes, from Daily Jack Solomon, his just tweet, 2 more years left for the Buhari-led administration to intensify effort to holistically fix the economy.
Sonny Michael Amakoji, one of our regulars, recommendation that according to him, the Buhari administration should focus more on the economy, especially power, and all other things will fall into place.
Law Alpha C has this tweet. Buhari has succeeded in assembling men and women with genuine and selfless intentions to serve and not to enrich themselves.
And Donatus Abo tweets, now cutting down on the earnings of the National Assembly and the executive branch, increasing workers' wages by about 40% will help the supply side and higher economic activity.
And still with Donatus Abo, it says last 2 years is below average, but it seems some corrective measures are on the way.
Law foresee again, it says the restoration of transparency and determined resolve to fight corruption despite opposition are major feats of President Buhari's administration.
Alexander Ochalibe wants to know what is happening to revenue saved as a result of subsidy removal by the Buhari administration.
Now, this is from Yazunom Dauda. It says, before the discovery of crude oil, Nigerians fed. So we should generate revenue through agriculture, and government should help farmers.
And another one from Dile Jack Solomon. Despite the laudable agricultural policy by the incumbent government, the cost of food, goods and services are on the increase. We produce nothing.
All right, those are some of the reactions we have. In the meantime, we're taking a short break now. When we return, of course, we'll continue with the conversation.
Admission forms for the 2017-2018 academic session of NTA Television College JAWS into its diploma programs are now on sale. The diploma programs are in film and TV production, broadcast journalism, and TV engineering technology. Applicants are required to have at least 5 credits, including English language and mathematics at SSC, NECO, or GCO levels in not more than 1 sitting. Application forms can be obtained from the TV College Refi JAWS or at any NTA zonal centers nationwide on payment of a no-refundable fee of 7,500 naira in bank draft in favor of NTA Television College. Completed application forms should be returned to the Office of the Academic Secretary, NTA Television College, or the Center of Purchase on or before 28th of July 2017. For further inquiries, please call 0806 980 9807 or 0703 660 7155. NTA Television College, training you to be the best you can be.
TV Guide magazine is out with fabulous Fab Funke Akindele Bello, aka Jennifer, adorning the cover. She opens a secret not known even to her family. Find out the secret. NTA turns 40 this year. The challenges, the emerging trends in broadcasting, and the way forward. Weekend Dealer 2. Meet the team behind the biggest deal on NTA. Is food still the way to a man's heart? If not, what else? This edition is hot and juicy. Meet your star faces on screen. Entertainment, fashion, young minds, social media, and great personality.
This is idiosyncratic and heterodox.
Yes, Professor John Bull is on the radar. Find out what makes this program the rave of the moment on NTA Network, and for the prof,
over and out.
TV Guide. Ask your vendors or book your copy at every NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, still your indispensable companion.
Thank you for staying with NTA. The program is So Good Morning Nigeria, and our focus today is on the midterm scorecard for the Buhari administration, taking a look at economy and its management. And we still have a guest here in Abuja studio, another guest on Skype, that is from Kano, Professor Sheka, and we have our other guest in Lagos. Okay, back to us in the Abuja studio, Dr. Dharma. You've touched on different areas of the economy. Now, the nation's budget in the past 2 years have been very ambitious, according to experts, and they're looking to, and now the administration is still looking towards borrowing to fulfill or to fill the funding deficit. What is your assessment of this, and how does this actually help when eventually it's assented to actually look in those areas on capital expenditure as well as other areas that have given us those rough edges?
Well, in reality, borrowing to finance budget is a much more costlier option. For countries that have got their acts together, countries like India, countries like Brazil, what they have succeeded in doing is to put in place a very coherent, transparent and result-oriented public-private partnership policy through which massive resources are injected into the economy through their national development plans or through their budget, which is a much cheaper option for undertaking developmental interventions. Unfortunately, in this country, every year we budget 6-7 trillion. When you convert it into dollars, that is 25, 30 something billion dollars for 180 million people. That is very, very insignificant, inadequate, and is a shame on all of us as a leading black country in the world. What we need to do is to look at our public-private partnership policy. For the last 15, 16 years, we have had a 50-50 policy. Why is it that it is failing? Why is it that Indians are attracting so much money through public-private partnership? Why is it that Brazil will budget over $800 billion in 2015 and 70% of it is through public-private partnership? Look, even if the price of oil reaches $150 today, at best, our total budget may not be more than $60 billion. But if you look at our infrastructure deficit and our financing needs, it's in the region of over $300 billion. So the reality is that we need massive resource injection from domestic investors and foreign investors, particularly into productive activities within the national economy. And until the country put its act right, by having a clearly defined medium-term national development plan strategy and sectoral policies that will give guide and direction to each and every sector of the economy, we will continue to talk. Nobody will bring his money into the economy, and what we are generating from oil is inadequate to propel this economy to sustainable level of growth and development over and above our normal 3% growth rate in population.
All right, Dr. Dama, thank you very much. Let's go to Professor Sheka. Professor Sheka, how would you respond to the view from the street that, look, the Buhari administration has put on the much faster track the TSA policy, by which it now has a panoramic view of government finances, and therefore we can say we have so many trillions, in the kitty, and then the government is also pursuing very rapidly too with revenue drive, through increasing the tax net and so on and so forth, and yet the government is also pursuing the borrowing, and we are servicing our debt with 66%. How do you explain this as an economist? In other words, does this make sense to the man on the street to say, look, you have so much money, you're seeking to borrow, and you are spending so much to service your debt?
Yeah, I think the ordinary people need to be enlightened that the fact that government is reporting trillions of naira in treasury single account, that does not mean there is either an increased revenue or something to the government. That, what it means is all the money belonging to the universe is another, ministries. It's what the government is reporting. It's not an extra, additional revenue or anything. It's just government, bringing all the accounts together so that they reduce wastages or whatever. So it's not to say that maybe that money is available for government to spend on other sectors. It's money belonging to ministries, it's money belonging to other departments and parastatals. So sincerely speaking, the treasury single account is only a window through which government just keep money and then observe the money, the expenditure, whatever of the money, to just ensure prudence in spending. So people should not look at that as additional or extra money for government to spend. And then again, really, like my friend Zipi has said, it's not proper for government to always be, making a deficit budget. So sometimes that can help in ensuring efficiency and productivity, but really, as far as we are concerned, now we are supposed to be cutting our costs according to our size. Especially this year, if you look at it, about 1.8 trillion is set aside for just debt servicing, and that is even above the 1.7 trillion set for capital expenditure. So really, I think that is a signal that government should be very careful in taking loans either internally or externally. And again, of course, with regards to, if I may sum up this issue of economic recovery and growth plan, that plan should or must be implemented. And just like I said sometimes in this forum, that if you look at the plan, you know that there is a bunch of experts in it. Government should not leave that in the hands of politicians. Experts should be employed to ensure proper implementation of this plan. And despite that, we still have to pray for government to succeed in that plan, because it has reached, I mean, it is reaching up to 2020, which is beyond the mandate of the government. We have seen how President Jonathan could not complete the 7-point agenda, and we have seen how the current government suppressed the transformation agenda. That we are not sure if after 2019, if the government does not continue, we are not sure if this plan will actually see to the logical conclusion. So really, we hope that since there are a lot of good things in it, we are happy now that, as President mentioned yesterday, that over $500 million have been added to the sovereign wealth funds, and that over $87 million have been added to the excess crude oil account. And of course, again, the inflation of the external reserve by over $7 billion. I think that is remarkable and it's encouraging, and all of us are having high hope that by middle or end of this year, we are going to get out of recession, and then the country will be in proper shape.
All right, Professor Shekhar, thank you very much for your comments. Let's return to, just by the way, before we go back to Lagos, let's come back to our Abuja studios. Mr. Ken Okoha, one of the statements you made earlier was the fact that, look, even traders were confronted with the fact that, look, the rate of the naira to the dollar had reached about 500 at some point. You now started looking inwards. What is it that your members are saying now with regard to patronage? Are Nigerians truly readjusting their tastes to what is locally available, or is it just a passing phase? I mean, assuming crude oil now comes to $200 per barrel, are we going to go, the same happy-go-lucky way, swiping your cards, in foreign markets, buying T-shirts and all kinds of things that you otherwise could buy here? What is it that is changing in our consumption habits that will encourage you to say, yes, we are learning lessons from current recession?
Honestly, quite a lot is happening, because if you look at the level of patronage on, of made in Nigerian goods now, at the last count, we did an analysis, we had about 27% increase in patronage of made in Nigerian products. But then, like a saying, which is quite true, there is need for us to institutionalize anything we are doing now in terms of policy to ensure that this has continuity. Now, why am I saying this? You raised the point about convergence or alliance between fiscal, monetary, and trade policies. However, the trade policy should have been an overarching one. Unfortunately, we do not have, as we speak now, a trade policy in space. The last trade policy that Nigeria had was in 2002. And up to this moment, you don't have a trade policy, it makes the environment become unpredictable. And therefore, anything could happen tomorrow. And we should not be basking in that euphoria of, yes, we have arrived, a lot of things are going on well now, and any little thing, a pin can drop, and then we slip off. That's one of the things that needs to be understood. The second thing is that there is need for government to continue efforts on the SIP. Look at the 140 billion meant for traders and all of that, and artisans. It's targeted at SME, and manufacturing SMEs development is very key to growth and sustainability. Again, you look at the issue of the National Industrial Revolution Plan. These are plans that we have here and there. The implementation, government should also begin to look at that particular focus now and now. Finally, on the space of laws, there are quite a lot of laws that are, trade-related and economic-related laws that are obsolete, pre-independent. I think the National Assembly has a role.
And
to start playing it.
they already
Now,
work. They're already
working
working on that.
But I think that should be, intensified. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kowa. We're on the last home stretch now. Guest in Lagos. Quickly, yes, gentlemen, everyone has actually itemized the different areas of strength as well as the loose ends. Dr. Nwosu, what more could actually help us or help the government to bring the desired confidence in these areas of policies, as well as taking a look at how to actually boost the confidence over there as well as in the country?
Thank you. Like Ken Oko has said, number one, the government has to check where there are policy gaps, and they need to put in policy, because policy drives legislation and programs. So that is number one. All policy gaps should be blocked with production of policy. Two, like my other colleague in Abuja said, the government has to undertake a study of every single productive sector of the economy and have its own blueprint for those sectors. You need to open up new sectors that will create employment and drive new revenue. For instance, the shipping sector in this country, the sports sector, sports as a business sector, expanding the creative and entertainment industries. These are areas in which the government could leverage on to create more employment and drive new revenue streams, including expanding and strengthening the work of the Nigerian Content Board in all areas where you have a lot of foreign dominance. Now, thirdly, the access roads to all seaports and airports in this country, not one is optimal. Even the Abuja Airport Express, not one is optimal yet. One of the three key focus of the ease of doing business is entry and exit of goods, entry and exit of persons. Apapa Port, Tinkan Island Port, Lily Pond Terminal, absolutely inaccessible. And yet you want goods and services to move easily. Fix them. On airport, Lagos International Airport and all that. Number four, the issue of the foreign exchange windows not being multiple must be focused on. Must be focused on, with the CBN doing what is best practice in line with our local situation. Finally, and I'd like to hit on this point, the productive sectors of the economy, with particular reference to manufacturing, I will expect that the Minister of Trade and Investment to leave his office in Abuja and go to every single geopolitical zone in person and speak directly with manufacturers in this zone, because collectively they could have their own collective issues, but in each zone they could have specific zonal issues. And discuss with them, because that sector, for instance, I'll tell you, there is no specific set of incentives that encourage the siting of manufacturing in remote areas that will open them up. None. And as I speak, for instance, Nigerian breweries opened up Obolafo area in Enugu State. Some manufacturing companies in the Tinapa zone. Kebbi State has the Kamba international border of Benin Republic, Niger, and Nigeria. The volume of trade that goes on in that place every day before 12 noon is unbelievable. You have to have a free trade zone there. You have to have a specific set of incentives for people to site factories in such places. It is not in place. Aba is a productive center. Nnewi is a productive center. They don't have free zones. And there are other areas where you have a lot of agriculture going on in the Middle Belt area. They need to have staple cross-processing zones. So that's why I said the last issue, the Ministry of Trade and Investment needs to go out with his team, the Export Promotion Council, the NIPC, and go and meet industrialists in those areas and potential industrialists to do the second leg of the enhancing of ease of doing business in Nigeria. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Iken Nwosu, would like to thank you very much for being part of our conversation this morning. And just to get your closing thoughts very briefly from Tilewa. Look, the economy, as it were, is getting out of its current turbulence. What could possibly go wrong? And therefore, what should we be wary of?
What can go wrong is the fact that government does not sustain the policy. I think the acting president now has a responsibility to ensure implementation across not only the implementing ministries, but also the policy-making ministries. It's important that he also inaugurates the National Council on Privatization. If the budget, as we've seen, is not sufficient, then you're going to have to encourage foreign direct investments to be able to invest in your privatization program. What amazes me is the fact that, as Professor Jeka has said from Kano, is that on all the indices, ease of doing business, competitiveness, Nigeria is in the bottom 20. But Nigeria is a G25 economy globally, and Nigeria has a potential of being a G10 economy. Despite or in spite of these 5 consecutive quarters of negative growth of the Nigerian economy has still remained the largest economy in Africa, and Lagos State, the 5th largest economy in Africa. So we have the potential in this country. It's now up to the drivers of our economy to put in the right policies, which they seem to have done. But more importantly, it's now up to the acting president to be able to implement these policies and restore confidence.
On that note, we'd like to thank our regular guests, financial analyst, Mr. Tilewa Adebajo. Thanks a lot for your insights. You joined us from our Lagos Network studios. We also, of course, earlier signed off Dr. Iken Nwosu, who is of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. He was also with Tilewa at our Lagos Network studios. And from Kano, we'd like to appreciate Professor Garba Sheka, Professor of Economics at Bayero University. You joined us via Skype. Thanks a lot, always, for your contribution.
Thank you.
And then with us here in the Abuja studios, Associate Professor of Economics, Dr. Nafis Dama of the Department of Economics at University of Abuja. Thanks a lot for your contributions.
Thank you very much.
And as well, Mr. Ken Ukoha, President, National Association of Nigerian Traders. Thanks a lot for being part of our discussion this morning.
Thank you very much, Kinsley.
All right, so let's move on now to our complementary segments. Listen.
Yes, the first one is sports. Let's join our sport desk for all the highlights from there.